I was born in Mexico. Then I moved to the States when I was a really young kid. And I started school not speaking a word of English. And it took a while. English is so difficult. It took a while for me to learn it. I was about, it took me about 4 or 5 years. I was about 10 or 11 when I started getting a grasp of the language. But I always had that love-hate relationship with English. So I was a reluctant reader. I was kind of upset that I wouldn't fully understand it, and I wanted to read it in Spanish, but there was no books in Spanish. So it was always that love-hate. But I love storytelling, and I wanted to be a storyteller because I always loved hearing stories from my family. And so I had that in my head that I wanted to be a storyteller or a writer. And once I got to high school, I remember taking the bus home from work. It was late night. I was riding the bus back home, and tired as heck. And I remember looking beside me, and somebody had left a book behind. And I wondered what book it was. So I picked it up, saw the orange cover, and it was Catcher in the Rye. And I was like, oh my goodness, sounds interesting. It sounds like an old book, and it looked tattered and whatnot. So I remember I started reading it on the bus, and I was hooked. I got home, and I remember I didn't even eat. I went straight, to the living room. I just started reading it and read the whole book in one sitting. I was just so enthralled by it, and I could not believe it. There was so much magic in that book, and I figured, you know what, I want to do this one day. And so when I got to college and took my placement test, I bombed the English test and ended up getting remedial. So I figured, you know what, that's a sign. I'm not meant to be a writer. Put that in the back burner, and I pursued studies in physics and engineering. Got those degrees, worked in an engineering firm, but I still had that fire burning about being a writer. And finally, 10 years ago, we lived in Italy, and that's when, everything was so inspiring around me there. And I figured, you know what, this is it. I'm going to start writing. And that was 10 years ago. So now I have my first book coming out, and that's pretty much my background.
I'm trying to figure out if that's a good thing or a bad thing to start with Catcher in the Rye. On the one hand, if it's not that great, then I guess you don't, maybe you don't get hooked. If it's just a standard, not so great James Patterson novel, maybe it's not that great. On the other hand, when you start with Catcher in the Rye, then whatever the next book you pick up, unless it's Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees, is probably going to be a letdown.
No, I was amazed. I was just blown away. Yeah, to this day, I read that book and I still get chills.
So, well, I've got all kinds of questions for you. I guess let's start with this idea that you didn't speak English until what you started kindergarten, but it still took almost 5 years for you to speak English. Then you go to you're in college and you get placed in remedial English for a while. So how does that improve? I know that you took 2 years of Latin and 1 year of German, and that helped improve your language?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I remember I signed up for Latin, and the first day of class we went in, and I remember the Latin teacher looking at all of the class, all of the students, and she said, okay, for the first 6 weeks, I'm not going to teach you Latin the semester. And we all kind of gave her a baffled look. She said, I'm going to teach you English the first 6 weeks. And I thought she was talking to me. So I turned back and I realized, I'm the only Mexican in the classroom. I'm like, okay, then she's probably not talking to me. I'm surprised she's talking to the whole classroom. And she said that, she's like, I assure you that none of you in this classroom speak English correctly or know the proper use of the language. And I can't teach you a second language unless you dominate one of them. So for those 6 weeks, it was like boot camp, English boot camp. It was just, everything and all about English. And in those 6 weeks, I learned more than I had throughout my middle school and high school. So my confidence in English just increased tremendously. And then I took German, and that reinforced a lot of the learning. And when I joined the military too, just being amongst other people and speaking more English and whatnot. And for the longest time, now that I write for children, looking back, I realized I had applied to so many scholarships and fellowships and grants and whatnot. So all along, I've been a writer. And so it was just a confidence in me, whether I had that confidence in the language to say, take authority and say, no, I will tell a story because I feel that I could tell it, you know. So more than anything, more than learning English itself, is just a confidence.